Timothy, he, him in California. Quran and the abortion. I want to hear this. This is something I have never heard before. So, Timothy, you there?
I'm not stereotyping apostate prophet. Can you hear me?
You're doing great.
Yeah, much better. Yes, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I went off my headset and I called. So I hope I'm not stereotyping apostate prophet, because when I saw he was hosting today, I wanted to pose this question for some time, and I know he's familiar with Islam.
Yeah, please go ahead. That should be fine. Yeah.
So a Muslim friend once told me that we were discussing abortion. He's actually a Quranic scholar, real genius, software engineer and cognitive scientist. But he was talking about how in the Hadith, the Quran talks about how the breath of Allah is not breathed into the soul of the fetus until 120 days.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a little research and found out that there's no just one Islam. Of course, there are 4 schools of thought in terms of interpreting the Hadith. Some say no, some say maybe, some say 120 days. But it occurs to me that there must be a Muslim American woman who has maybe not had access to an abortion because of some state legislation that could then undertake a restriction of her First Amendment right to freedom of religion to go ahead and have access to an abortion in that state. And I just wonder why that argument hasn't ever been raised. The Christian Bible, as you know, doesn't have, it's crickets on abortion. And even the Torah mentions that the mother's life is more important than the fetus's because she already has a family to care for. So there's 2 of the 3 big holy books that have at least mentioned it, whereas the one that seems to be carrying the day in America, without calling it a religious constitutional abomination, that would be a good legal basis.
I think it's not really that simple. You're right. According to the Islamic reports, according to the Islamic traditions, it says that Allah gives life or the spirit to a fetus at about 4 months or so. At 4 months, the life is given. And then this person basically comes into existence. Because of that, Islamic scholars throughout history have said that a fetus is a human being after the 4 months, or has a soul after the 4 months. And based on that ruling, they said it should be absolutely impermissible to abort a fetus after that stage. The thing is, the ruling has also historically not been that before that abortion is completely fine. That is not really the history of things, especially according to some schools like the Maliki school. I believe it is still completely forbidden to have an abortion even before 4 months. As soon as the conception takes place, there is no such thing as abortion. It is completely impermissible. It is considered immoral, and so on. It is, as far as I understand it, as far as I have read up on this, Muslim scholars have in general ruled that abortion should not be done. It should only be done in cases of a life-threatening situation. And things like that. You can also not find a single source which actually talks about abortion, which actually says that it is okay, or in which Muhammad says that it is okay, or in which the Quran says that it is okay. The only suggestion from reports that you can find comes from Muhammad, where he says that you should not use protection or you should not pull out if you have intercourse, from which it is understood that you are not supposed to take control over whether a baby comes into existence or not. You should just do your thing and leave the rest to Allah. So and that is considered the most perfect moral example to follow. So no, I wouldn't agree that Islam actually has a proper foundation to support some abortion before a certain time.
Let's not forget that in Burwell versus Hobby Lobby, the eminent Justice Samuel Alito actually deigned to use the term sincere religious belief, which I was incredulous at for a Supreme Court justice, to inject that kind of language into an assent, on a ruling that is in the basis of challenging Roe v. Wade. There's no Pope in Islam. But of course, the Pope is just Catholic. There's no Pope analog in Protestant faith. And so now all of a sudden that concept of sincere religious belief was put on point by the assenting justice of the Supreme Court. I just think it's maybe a topic that could be bandied about, mostly because at least it's discussed in the two holy books of Judaism and Islam. And there's not a peep about it in the Bible.
Well, I think
the
that
First Amendment is a dicey one, isn't it?
yeah, I think I didn't know anything that the Quran said really anything about abortion. There are some things in the Bible that are kind of in the same vein. There are aspects of God knowing you in the womb and blah blah blah. There are also some organizations like the Satanic Temple, I believe, that have bodily autonomy as a part of their sincerely held religious belief, and are arguing that should give their members rights to their body that might be taken away. So
I have to make one correction here before we go ahead with that, Timothy. There's just one thing that I want to correct. Hadith and Quran are separate things in Islam. So the Quran is the book. The Hadith are just reports about Muhammad. The Quran doesn't say a single thing about abortion ever.
Oh, it's the Hadith.
So yeah, the Quran never says anything about
Okay,
abortion.
okay,
So
that's good.
I understand. I do understand that, and yet there are four main Sunni schools of thought. And I'm just reading off the Wikipedia here. I don't know the difference between Hanafi, the Shafi'i, the Hanabi, and the Maliki, right? But it's under discussion within the active practice of Islam. And so there we are we not? Again, we're back to if there's a religious basis for it, and we can talk about sincere religious belief in Burwell v. Hobby Lobby, then why not, Mrs. Whomever from Georgia versus the state of Georgia.
Yeah, I guess it would be a very interesting thing if it came up. I guess it's not something that I've ever really concerned myself with, but
and there are some.
There is a Muslim or a Jewish woman that hasn't approached this issue before and considered, like all women do,
it's actually very hard for Muslim women to approach this in general.
Yeah, and Timothy, because we're running out of time and we got some other things to do, but remember that there are some wonderful fan Facebook groups that you can go bounce that off of each other, and I think AP has like a channel or something. I mean, he's very new in the scene. I think hasn't been doing it for years and crushing it. But anyway, Timothy, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Timothy. We're gonna let you go.